more backspin, top spin, side spin, and how it makes the game easier to play. Welcome back, and if it's your first time watching one of our videos, then it's fantastic to have you here. It's difficult to explain until you've actually experienced it, how much easier the game is to play when you can get the cue ball into the right position. And most of the time this is simply because you're far less likely to miss a pot. You see,
playing a positional shot when you've got the right angle isn't too difficult. But you've only got to come away from perfect position by just a little bit, and the shot all of a sudden becomes a lot more challenging. And at this stage, the more spin you can put on the cue ball, the easier the shot is going to be to play.
it just reduces the amount of force you have to put into the shot.
And a great example of that is potting this pink into the middle pocket. To get on the next red, the white needs to come back a few inches. But to generate that spin, if I don't have the best cueing, I'm going to need a lot of power. And that really makes the pink missable. The difference is when you can easily generate a lot of spin on the cue ball, you don't need any power at all to play this shot, making it incredibly straightforward.
Playing it like this, I'm almost certain to pot it. Hopefully it should be fairly obvious that you get more spin on any shot the closer you strike to the edge, although it is worth pointing out you can overdo this. And watch the difference between these two shots here and see how much faster the lower shot comes back. And that's because on the top shot the cue almost stops as soon as it hits the cue ball. The cue would have lost speed before contact, resulting in a reduced reaction. Making sure you follow through allows your cue to be at its maximum speed as it strikes the cue ball. And we're going to look at this in a lot more detail.
But we're going to start by looking how to generate the best possible top spin effect.
When you strike the cue ball above centre, it will roll through, but we're not looking to just get the cue ball to roll along the table. We're looking to use this spin to help the cue ball gain speed.
On shots like this one, you need to get the cue ball to run through quite a long way. I'm looking to finish in here somewhere. But watch the difference between the two shots I'm about to play, because I'm about to play them both at roughly the same power.
Now it is likely I didn't play this first shot with any topspin at all, but that isn't the main reason those two shots seem so different and had such contrasting results.
Surprisingly, the main difference between those two shots is just simply the angle I had my cue to the table.
On the first shot I was striking down on the white just a little bit, and this caused it to bounce, and this bounce made it lose speed. However, this can be desirable.
If I finish too straight on a shot like this one, what I can do is bounce the cue ball into the black. This will have the effect of straightening up the black, so I'll have to play it at a slightly increased angle in order to pot it, meaning I can play it at a wider angle and get on the next red. But if your goal is to get the cue ball to run through fast, then having it bounce isn't really that desirable.
Keeping the cue ball flatter on the table will cause it to lose less speed on impact, run through straighter, and stay in contact with the table more, making its spin more effective.
Not everybody's going to agree with this, but it really works. And if you want to get the cue ball running through without bouncing, then instead of pointing your cue straight at it, or maybe striking down on it a tiny bit, strike up at the cue ball. And this reduces it bouncing a lot. So after the cue ball struck the object ball, it remains in contact with the table for a greater amount of time, using all of its spin to help it accelerate down the table. The only problem with this is it's a little bit harder to strike the ball in a straight line. But there is something you can do about that, and that will also boost the amount of spin you're able to get on the cue ball.
And that's playing the white straight up and down through the spots. Because this is an unusual place to strike the cue ball, you may be further out than normal here. Mostly this will help you play shots straight and pot the balls, but shots played with no side spin whatsoever will have fractionally more topspin.
The third thing that can boost the reaction you get from a topspin shot like this is side spin as well, because when you play these shots, the chances are the cue ball is going to come into contact with a cushion at some point.
And as we've already pointed out, when you're playing a shot with a large amount of speed, it's difficult to strike it exactly in the centre. And if you play a shot into a cushion at an angle with inside spin, this can slightly slow it down as it hits the cushion, and this really won't help you get in position. The difference is if you accidentally put a small amount of outside spin on the cue ball, you're making it just as difficult to pot, but it will actually accelerate a little bit when it strikes the cushion, making the positional shot easier. But this isn't about deliberately playing shots with side spin in order to get in position, and I'll explain more about that with screw shots after we pin Michael from Ostrava in the Czech Republic. The further down the cue ball you go, the more backspin you'll produce, but these shots can be just as affected by unwanted side spin as shots with top spin. The only difference is you will likely to be putting on the cue ball reverse side. Here left hand side makes it spin to the right as it strikes the cushion, and right hand side makes it spin to the left. So you need to think about how getting it slightly wrong will affect your position.
Because you have to play these shots with a small amount of pace, it's highly likely you'll put some unwanted side spin on the cue ball. So just make sure you're erroring on the side that's more likely to get you in position. Especially when hearing people talk about backspin, you've probably heard them mention timing quite a lot. But what exactly is it, and how can it help you generate more spin for the cue ball?
I'd describe timing as knowing both exactly where the cue ball is and exactly when the tip of your cue is going to make contact with it. And this is why it feels like it takes a few shots before you're cueing properly. But when you are...
It's almost like being able to pot the ball blindfolded.
Timing first involves standing and cueing the right distance from the cue ball. If you're a little bit too far away, your cue will be slowing down as it makes contact. And if you're too close to the shot, your cue won't have enough time to accelerate up to speed. This is also why you need a consistent technique, because it's the only way your muscles are going to know the exact moment when you're striking the cue ball. And that's really what good timing is.
And this is what will help you generate the most amount of backspin. Knowing exactly when the tip of your cue is going to contact the cue ball.
But there are still more ways of helping you generate a greater amount of backspin. And striking the cue ball with a cue that's more parallel to the table isn't as beneficial as you might think, but can prevent the cue ball from losing spin via bouncing and slightly help you screw back further. Where a wider stance may help you get your body lower, how level your cue is will depend on the size of your bridge hand, and there may not be anything you can actually do about this. However, something we can do something about is finding Eduardo from Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Now when you strike the cue ball to the left or right or centre, you will give it side spin. Again, hopefully it should be obvious, the further to the side you strike, the more spin you'll put on the cue ball. And again, hopefully it should be obvious, you can actually overdo this. The further above centre you strike the cue ball, the less it will deviate offline, making it easier to play break-off shots. However, you will get slightly more spin from a drag effect if you strike just below the centre of the cue ball. However, this will cause the cue ball to deflect wider.
These shots are far less crucial, but they can give you an easier time escaping from snooker, so it is quite good to know them. And here's a fun little test.
Try striking through the spots with exactly the right amount of side spin to get the cue ball to bounce back into the middle pocket. The chances are you will be able to do this with a greater amount of accuracy when using one side spin rather than the other. Also, you may find you're able to put far more of one particular spin on the ball than the other. For me, this is right hand side, and I can't quite put so much left hand side on the ball for some reason. Once you can get the cue ball into both middle pockets, then just see how much side spin you can put on the cue ball like this and how far down the cushion you can strike. It's quite interesting to try and find ways to improve this, but unfortunately it's very dull to watch. So instead we'll probably go to Amir in Jerusalem before people start losing interest. But aiming with side spin is quite difficult. So why not have a look at this video that explains all the tricks to doing just that, or find out why this cue has a spring in it and how that can help you improve your snooker. And remember, don't just watch, play, and make the commitment to becoming a better player by subscribing to the channel and visit the website. See you later.